Good afternoon. Welcome to Landmark Center. We're glad you're here. This is the season of Christmas, and it's the season of stories, of unusual stories and things that happen. This one is called The Chickens Flew the Coup. And this is a Christmas story, you say? It is. Videoed by a man named Mimo and read by a short old guy named JB. So, are you ready? The chickens flew the coop. Oh, this is just nuts. The voice was feminine, was young and excited, and it was loud enough to carry out the windowless opening of the centuries-old uninhabited and forgotten farmhouse to the ears of the middle-aged man struggling through knee-deep December snow to reach the old house's front door. Moments later, the voice enthused, "You gotta read this, Doc. You're never gonna believe it." Struggling onto the structure's uneven, rotting porch, the man replied, "Probably not, Miss Ostratz. Though I must give you credit," the man continued, stomping snow from his boots, "I must give you credit for stamina, remaining in that cold attic for so long." "Nicest thing you said to me all day, Professor Rumbledon," came the response from above. "But," she began, to which he immediately responded, "Get down from the attic. Now, I hate to declare an ultimatum," he continued, "but with evening approaching and gas tanks showing 1/4 remaining, we return to the university now, or we die together. Our frozen remains to be discovered in some lonely deer hunter who by chance, years from now, stumbles on this one lost but now found 1850s great-grandfather's..." Okay, she said, terminating the lengthy description of the surroundings and her family's connection to it. Awkwardly dropping feet first to the floor through the ragged hole in the ceiling, she said, "Perhaps warmth and a place with electric lights might be better." And then immediately added, pointing to the material in her hands, "Oh man, this is unbelievable." Emily Maybelline Ostratz sat curled up in a great chair before the glowing embers in the massive fireplace in the college library. Across her lap was the century-old paper discovery, the same one she had been reading in that cold attic a few hours prior. She discovered the diary at the very bottom of a box of trinkets and cards she uncovered beneath some rotting corner floorboards in the attic. It was a day-to-day diary of almost a year in the life of her great-great-grandfather, Alexander Godfrey Ostratz. Well, his handwriting was atrocious. What he was writing was unbelievably interesting. Yet interpreting those scrawls was a highly focused labor. Even the second cup of coffee, just an arm's reach away, couldn't forestall an attack of excited exhaustion. Sleep overwhelmed her. The manuscript slipped from her grasp, slid off her lap, splashed on the library stone floor. It wasn't the noise of the papers hitting the floor that woke her, it was the shattering of her coffee cup as it followed the descent of the manuscript. Emily was awake, but not totally alert. She sat up, then straightening her legs. A moment later, she was on the floor, gathering up the coffee-soaked sheets. At least as many as she could immediately see. Several nearby students, hearing the incident, corralled those pages that had floated away from Emily's chair, returned those uncoffee-soaked ones to her. By the time the library closed for the day, Emily had reassembled her great-great-grandfather's work. It told of her ancestors' arrival during the first years of the American Civil War, of his first few days and weeks in his new Midwestern environment, of the construction of his home, and on that last page, something that confirmed the Ostratz family rumors, that their great-great-grandfather was an inventor of things unheard of in the 1860s, steam-driven wagons, lights without flames. In that nearly lost and forgotten house, Alexander Godfrey Osterkratz was working on something no one had ever imagined: a bigger, better chicken. One the size of a turkey or larger, as tasty and colorful as a pheasant from China, as fast as the guinea hen from Turkey, and as strongly soaring as the American eagle. She would have to return to that house and search for his results. But classes for the quarter were done. Most of her dormitory neighbors, at least those with cars, had left the holidays. Her professor mentor was leaving to attend the baptism of another grandchild. Still, the call for that nearly lost and forgotten derelict house and the end of her relatives' experiments were loud in her mind. "You got your cell phone now?" the driver asked as she opened the passenger side door. "In my hand, going into my bag right now," she responded, plopping the phone and closing the flap on her backpack as she slung it over her shoulder. Backing out the passenger door into the drift of piled road-edge snow, she leaned in and thanked the driver, reminding him to return in 3 hours. "You really gonna be okay, young lady? There? I told my professor where I was going," she quickly inserted, smiling. "Promised I would check back with him in 3 hours, and if I didn't, he was to call the police." The college town's lone cab driver was about to comment. "I'll be fine," she inserted, and gave him a firm, confident nod. "Just you be sure to be back here in 3 hours. She wagged her finger. With an affirmative nod from the driver, she started through the knee-deep snow to great-great-grandfather Osterkratz's house. It was noon when she climbed the wobbly stairs to the attic. Under her ski jacket, she had 2 light sweaters and her shirt. Temperature was almost up to freezing, but the attic, without its missing roof panels, shielded some of the light breeze that bothered the crumbling home. Sky was clear, sun poured in through the large attic windows. She looked about the space. Corner. That's where she found the box with the papers. Attic floorboards still piled nearby. She'd start her search there. From that corner to the one opposite, then the next one, pulling up the wood floor as she moved. Then the final corner. The center floorboards were the ceiling for the room below, so no space to hide anything there. And there were no insulations on the walls, just the slanting roof above her, and it was just 2x4s topped by roof planks. She scoured each run of studding. There was nothing there. Then the cell phone in her backpack began chirping. Not a call, just a warning. She had been there 2.5 hours. Better think about calling the town cab. After she put the attic back the way it was, the way she had found it, she grabbed the box in which she had found the manuscript, reached across some of the piled floor planks to the box's top, grabbed the cardboard top, and bringing it toward her over the piled floorboards, succeeded in accidentally flipping it on its top to land before her. Stuck to the inside top of the box were 3 pieces of blank paper, same size, same color, same composition as the ones in great-great-grandpa Osterkratz's diary. But they were just blank. The other side, she thought, and jerking a corner of the century-old paper ripped. She stopped immediately, panicked, heart pounding now. She slowly rotated the ripped hunk of paper she held. Yes, more writing. From what she could immediately translate from the atrocious handwriting, it was about chickens. Slowly, she pried the 3 pages free, turned them over to reveal what she hoped she would find: 3 pages filled with the writing of her great-great-grandfather great-grandfather's experience. And this is what those writings said. And of all those that survived, I turned down the blankets, climbed into bed. The 6 hybrid chickens curled up before me in front of our home's fireplace. What a wonderful Christmas. My birds, none like them in the world, big, almost turkey-sized, with huge, wide, eagle-like wings, colors of pheasant, scarlet and amber. Some had chicken splashes of white and black feathers, but all had long, balancing tails and beaks large and strong emerging from eagle-like heads perched on guinea, featherless necks. As I watched them drop slowly down around their feet, I hugged their creation notes to my chest. I must put this information in a place of safekeeping, her great-grandfather thought, as I climbed out of bed, heading toward the place I thought secret. As I headed toward that, the roof shook with a violent collision. Something crash-landed above us. The audible chaos was followed by a movement of silence, and then silence. And then, whatever it was up there began moving, clawing, scraping, struggling. My chickens were on their feet. All now were looking up, their wings partially extended as though prepared for battle. Sorry to impose on you, came a voice from behind me. Do you, by chance, have any reindeer I could borrow? I turned about, the great-great-grandfather wrote, and standing before the closed and still bolted front door was a man, stout of chest and abdomen, medium of height with an abundant white beard. On his head he wore a pointed black knit skull cap. His upper body was covered by a short but generously insulated blue jacket, lavishly covered with innumerable white stars. Tall boots sheltered his feet, and brown and blue striped breeches surrounded his legs. It was as if he had stepped from the front page of my recently arrived 1863 Harper's Weekly. Tom Nast drew me for Harper's, the man said, noting my Harper's copy on the doorside table. I told him, the man said, red with white fur would be better. I stood amazed. You really are? Never had a chance to conclude, not familiar with this area, Santa quietly said as he ambled toward the fireplace, hands extended toward its radiating warmth, chickens separating, opening a path. Every year my range is expanding, Santa said, places I've never been. Sitting now on the hearth, Santa told how many of his 8 reindeer were damaged by unexpected encounters with fences and windmills and even new towns. No major injuries, you understand, but enough, he opined, that they aren't focused on flying and landing. Moreover, Santa continued, the 2 uninjured reindeer just couldn't physically handle the remainder of his route. I explained, the grandfather wrote, that all I had were my hybridized chickens. No horses, mules, or trapped elk, deer, moose. He looked disappointed. I used to have a wagon, Santa began, but the coop I use now is lighter, smaller, though big enough for all the gifts at this point. Also easier to pull, much more maneuverable. That last part about the maneuverability of his gift-carrying sleigh, he admitted he was not yet expert at. Maybe, he said, scrutinizing the strange-looking feathered sextet wandering around him, you know, maybe they could, and at that moment, all 6 of my special chickens began a positive honking and hollering noise that overwhelmed our conversation. To his suggestion, I shouted back, well, if they can be of assistance, and almost in response, the chickens raised their featherless necks and began such a flapping of wings, my few pieces of furniture were blown over, my research papers were blown about the room, most into the fireplace, but most fearfully. Both kerosene-lit lamps were overturned, spilling their flammable contents onto the floor and darkening the entire room. Terrified the spilled exhilarant would ignite, I stumbled my way in the dark to the kitchen, grabbed what I later discovered was some underwear I had just washed, and, with the amber glow of the fireplace to guide me, returned to the great room and soaked up the fuel. Rescuing the research papers from the fire was now impossible. They were just ashes. Righting the table and the chairs, and after relighting the lamps, I discovered, the grandfather writes, I was all alone. Santa and my chickens had vanished. It was then I heard some shuffling, scraping on the roof, mixed with those excited, strange, hybrid chicken calls. I unbolted the door, ran outside to look at the roof. Oh, the moon was full that Christmas Eve night, and its blue glow illuminated everything, trees, shrubs, the house, and most disconcertingly, along the roof peak of my house, pairs of my chickens standing in a line in front of a small winter sleigh the man had called a coop. Resting in the snow on my slanted roof were reindeer. Reindeer, 3 there. 2 were kneeling by my front door, and a 6th probably on the side of the roof away from my view. The man with the beard was bent over, quickly and efficiently, somehow harnessing the chickens to the leather strap that would pull the sleigh. The chickens were unusually quiet, seemingly intent on their human's activity. Finished, finally, he stood up. Santa ran along the peak toward his snow carriage, waving and calling to me, "Listen, I thank you very much. I've talked to the chickens. They're ready. Only a few hundred, maybe a few thousand or so stops, and we'll be back for breakfast." And with that, he leapt on the curved bow of his package-filled transport, gave a whistle, and away they all flew in different directions. That aerial chaos lasted only a moment, fortunately. As one, they seemed to respond to some unheard direction and began pulling in their individual wobbly way directly through the tops of the trees that surrounded my house, rising higher and higher into the cloudless night sky, all forward in that wobbly dissident charge. But as they circled higher and higher, they began to coalesce into winged coursers, paired in 3 groups behind the 2 leading uninjured reindeer. And crossing the full moon, they were the most unusual sight. Reindeer leading 3 pair of chickens, pulling a sleigh with a Santa in a blue star-spattered jacket waving his thanks. Emily Maybelline Osterkratz put down this last 3rd sheet of handwritten paper. So then what happened? She looked through the box she had previously discovered. She looked under the floorboards again. She scanned the attic for anything she hadn't seen before. Then her phone rang. It was the timer. She had to go. It was almost 3 p.m. She picked up her box's top and her bag and headed for the rickety stairs down. Emily would go back to that nearly lost and forgotten derelict house in the woods. She would search it intensely, determined if there was any evidence, written or otherwise, of what had actually occurred that night in 1863. She would do that this coming summer when it was warm. As for now, the story of the chickens that flew the coop would remain hers. And now that you've heard it, it is yours too. Merry Christmas.
Holly hanging across the door, neighbors singing tales of yore. It's so close, hardly can wait.